Gente, hoje a gente tem uma atividade um pouquinho diferente, porque a gente vai fazer um live. Eu estou aqui com o Paul, da Fazenda Green Man, mas o live de hoje vai ser feito em inglês, porque nós estamos preparando a participação do pessoal que não é brasileiro para os cursos também em setembro. Paul, thank you very much. For being here, for inviting me to this project. It's a pleasure to be part of the project. And I guess I'm here to answer a few questions about the course and how we go about the course and what people get out of it. Let's just jump straight onto it.
Sure.
What do you think is the right way for us to present this project for our friends?
Well, I guess coming from where I'm coming from, as somebody who's not Brazilian and who has kind of invested in a small agricultural property, it's a steep learning curve when you're from the other side of the world, when you don't understand the natural order of things in terms of wildlife and in terms of all life, basically. And so when I came across agroforestry first, it looked like a wonderful solution to an awful lot of issues that we're facing here, and but primarily one being water. As one of my colleagues says, we're in the business of planting water, which I liked a lot, because basically without water, there's nothing. And we passed through a serious drought here, which probably some of the folks watching this in the gringo groups in Brazil will remember, going back where there were rations of water in Sao Paulo and in Rio de Janeiro, where we were getting to very, very dangerously low levels. And as we're in a cycle where these kinds of things tend to repeat themselves, and with climate change, these repeats tend to be exaggerated each time because of the worsening climatic conditions. Felt that really we had to start doing something serious about this, and not just kind of like weekending kind of stuff, a nice thing to do. So through that process, and then we came in touch with you and your work in permaculture as well. And I thought that, well, having looking what you were doing, that the combination of these two ideas really was a route that we were really interested in following. Not only because of the practical solutions, but also because of the idea that we're working in a holistic way. That is a new way of doing business, a new way of working together. It's not competitive, it's cooperative. And it's also something that I feel really driven and proud that my children are involved in this from such an early age. And it bodes well for the future to see their reaction. And we're just going to see the more people we can get involved in this, whether they be property owners or people who just want to learn, and the wrong word is to evangelize, because that gives me nojo, as they say in Portuguese, but to spread the word that this is an essential activity, and people who are in the business of beef and dairy and other types of animal production can look at how this can benefit them. And I was coming across another colleague of ours who we'll be talking to, I think, at the end of August, Dr. Patrick Worms with the International Agroforestry Research Center. He has basically an overwhelming deposit of scientific information, sources, facts, experiences, going back, not just like in the last recent years, but going right back to the early last century, with farmers all around the world, and what they're up and what they've been up to for a long time. So with all of that in mind, here we are, and we're looking to, like I was saying to you earlier, people who are interested to get their kids involved, bring them, get them in, let them get a taste while they're young, because that's kind of like how it works. I mean, as my childhood, I spent a lot of time living in the countryside in Ireland, and we weren't farmers, but our neighbors were. And I used to get after school jobs, weekend jobs, summer jobs, bringing in hay, collecting eggs, putting pig swill out or pig slurry onto the fields, whatever. And I loved it. I loved it. And I guess it stayed with me. And maybe I wouldn't have come from the dark side, so to speak, if I hadn't had that experience as a younger person.
Yeah. Look, I feel that when we talk about these things in English, I might be repeating myself because we literally are not trying to be cliche, but it's truth. We sit on the shoulders of giants. We have so many very knowledgeable people doing this sort of work in English. But I think what I might bring to the table is this perspective as well. I've got a few things to point out. Is this: if it's not intergenerational, it's not an effort that it's worthwhile doing it. Because if it's going to die in the next generation because they're not into it, there's no point.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I have to say about this is, like you, I grew up with a big chunk of my infancy in a farm, and my teenagers, my young adult life as well. My main point that I want to come across is this: if you don't have a mentor that can tell you what those experiences are and how important they are for you, that knowledge might be lost in the experience. So what I'm trying to say is this: someone might grow up in a farm or in a natural environment, but if there's no one there to tell you the interactions of the trees, of the animals, of the climate cycles, and if there's no one there to point out these things for you, you might be amazed. You might feel in complete absorption with, like, you might feel one with that environment, but you won't know how to connect the dots. Absolutely. So we need some sort of guidance and mentoring for ourselves and for our kids that connect these dots for us. Someone that will tell us, look, this tree only lives about 15, 20 years because the role of this tree is to create soil to bring another one that is stronger and that will live longer. Or, the role of this little animal here is to munch at the bottom branches of a tree that's getting sick, because in munching those branches, he actually sanitizes that tree and that tree can live longer. So don't kill that animal because it's doing a job for you. Or don't be so scared of the bats because the bats are spreading the seeds for you. So we need someone that can bring back all of this knowledge for us. And like you're saying, if this is imprinted on us from a very young age, it becomes natural for us to think this way. And I think it addresses one of the main problems that we have, which is the sense of disconnection. It's a false disconnection because we can't live without nature. We are actually killing ourselves. But we have a sense of disconnection because we've been living out of those systems for too long. Anyway, that's just me ranting about what our mission and what we believe, but we both agree on that. I suppose my contribution with the course, so for those of you listening to us now and watching us now, we have a series of courses happening in September. Paul is one of the main drivers behind the production of these courses. Another one is Danielle, a friend of ours, who's running another course at the School of Permaculture. And I've been put together in a team with an amazing person, Sérgio Olaya. He works with the Agroforestry. He's been working with syntropic farming for quite a few years now. And I've been thrown into this mix to provoke some thoughts and to I suppose, to link some different fields, some complementary fields of knowledge. One of them is the permaculture design. And the permaculture, people sometimes get very protective of an area. And we have a lot of people today dealing with syntropic farming in agroforestry, successional agroforestry systems in Brazil. And there is there is still some presence of a competitive mind, and people think that if you deal with permaculture, you're not doing agroforestry. If you deal with agroforestry, you're not doing permaculture, and so on and so forth. My main point with this is that most of the things that we do, they are contextual. When we think about context, we bring wisdom to knowledge, because knowledge without wisdom can get outdated very fast. But when you bring the element of wisdom, which is being able to see a context in the actions and decisions that you're doing, that's an element of wisdom. That's my view anyway. So permaculture is a design science that helps us think the connections between elements in a system, but more importantly, it helps us think our presence in the planet. So if I would describe what the permaculture thinking, systemic thinking is a way for us to rethink our presence in the planet in a way that we look after ourselves, we look after the future generations, and we strive to have not a minimal impact, but a positive one. In a way that
Absolutely.
When a tree lives in a forest, when that tree dies of natural causes, it only enriches the forest. Now, very few human beings in the planet can say the same about their lives. Most of us, when we die, we are leaving a worse planet for the next generation. So permaculture is about that. It's about how we provide for our own needs, how we provide for our energy needs, our food needs, how we provide for our shelter, and so on and so forth. But an element of a big chunk of permaculture is actually about how we provide food. It's about food security. So in that sense, even though permaculture has been criticized for not being as productive as successional agroforestry systems, permaculture has been thinking about design and the designing of these systems for about 40 years. So if we can get the effective production of syntropic farming, for instance, but think it in a systemic way, in a design way that permaculture offers, then we are, again, like you're saying, we are overcoming the competitive mindset, and we are working in a cooperative mindset. And then we can put these two fields of knowledge and practice together, and people can only benefit from those things. So that's one of my contributions for the course, is linking these two areas in a way that people see that they are actually complementary and not conflictive. That was a long answer.
That's it in a nutshell. And we're all basically in the same boat, and we all should be paddling in the same direction. And this is what I'm hoping that we can achieve in part, or at least start, is that building bridges between all of these different and complementary fields of activity that are all basically with the same goal in mind, which is, as you say, water and food security for all of us, and to leave a positive footprint behind us when we leave. And,
that's right.
So in a nutshell, I mean, that's basically it. And, if there's, I think we might have a few photos here, right, of what we've been doing here since the end of February this year, with Sérgio Olaya's help, who's presenting the agroforestry part of this course. Can you put those up for us to see?
Yeah. I'll put the pictures on.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon?
We can talk through them.
I'll put the pictures up. I'll just one further comment in this. A small part of the course, we'll be dealing with holistic decision making, and that's a modality that comes out of holistic management, and it talks deeply to that issue that I started talking about it, which is bringing context to our decision making. So a part of the course, it's also about bringing that perspective so that people can put together a lens of wisdom to the lens of the practice and the knowledge as well. So with the holistic decision making, we'll be working with people so that they can design, they can think about their own personal and family context and how they want to go about this endeavors, with the forestry systems or with the farm or whatever is their cup of tea in terms of how they're going to act in this sense, and then they'll be better equipped to make their decisions for themselves instead of copying, having like a cutter from other people's businesses and projects. They'll be better able to think for themselves, their family, their local community, and adapt those projects for their own needs. So this holistic decision making will be a very empowering tool in terms of giving context to the whole thing. The permaculture will help the designing and the placement and I would say tweaking the system so that they work in better harmony with the rest of the property. And the forest and the successional agroforestry in itself, that it's Sérgio Olaya's area, and that he does it very well. So that these are the three main areas that we're going to be working for this specific course at the Green Man. But let me pull up the pictures and we'll talk a little bit about them.
Sure.
So here we go. We've got
So this first photo we're looking at here is just a view from out the back here to show that we're on one side of us, we're surrounded by forest, which is fantastic. And I love to go walking through there at times. It's inspirational and it's not managed. It's just kind of grown on its own for, I don't know how long, but obviously for quite some years. And it just gives a great sense of security here where I live, not because of water. Even during the dry spell we had here a number of years ago, our water didn't run out, unlike in a lot of other places. And it's basically because of these beautiful trees. And I guess the next photo here is
the next one, Paul, is this is how the area
more or less
was before.
Agroforestry idea. You can see that the bananas are planted in straight lines, and I had no clue what I was doing until Sergio came and said, no, we have to change them. And I said, correct me. So we started by changing the direction of the bananas so that they would receive the sun as they went during the day. And as we move on, you can start to see that in this same space is how things have started to improve. We've got some java du cabas there, and bananas, coffee, dioba, sweet potato. I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah. We've got yams, bananas.
It's looking really good.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's all happened basically since the end of February. So I'm like absolutely stunned with the results, and kind of really keen to share this with you. Say this is possible.
I want to just comment on something. You got a few rows of corn here as well, don't you?
Yeah. So what I did was we planted corn and kaping, which is elephant grass, together, and beans as well. That's basically since been cut now and shredded up. Corn has been harvested, and the biomass that's been produced between the rows has gone in on top of those rows now as food for the plants that have been planted, and they've started to grow again already. So we've got our first bananas coming out here, which I think is the next one. And before we go, we've got in this picture here.
I just wanted to comment something, which is for most people not familiar with agriculture. It's just I'll try and put it in a nutshell, but the staple food of our societies it's usually grain, and we have a problem with grain because we learned that agriculture it's got inbuilt into it it's almost like it's not agriculture if you don't till the soil, if you don't turn the soil over, and that sort of stuff. And one of the main problems that we have today, according to some of the reports from the FAO, the World Foundation for Agriculture, is that each person in the planet consumes about 500 kilos of food per year. And the problem is that our agriculture is losing 20 tons of topsoil to produce that 500 kilos per person per year. And the reason why it's doing that is because our agricultural methods are totally outdated and out of tune with nature. And when you produce grains like this in a forestry system, you are actually building up soil, preventing erosion, and improving hydrology. So just for those people, again, when I participate in those things in English, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but it's important to say that it's a breakthrough to be able to in a different scale, of course, in a different order, but it's quite a breakthrough to be able to produce grains in a system that's actually improving the environment instead of degrading it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
And before we move on, there's a tree in the background here with a lot of red flowers on it, and that's called an espatogia, as far as I know. And those red flowers kill bees. And so this weekend we're having a course here in pruning at altitude. Well, we are at altitude, at heights. You're using alpine climbing methods with chainsaws and stuff like that. It's all gonna be loads of fun. I'm looking forward to it, and make me feel young again. But those that they're coming out because of that, and all of that material, that biomass that's in those trees is going to go into more of what you're looking at here on the bottom part of the photograph, as food for food for the forest.
Yeah. So in the permaculture tradition, Paul, there is a practice that's called chop and drop, which is the pruning and laying of the biomass on top of the soil, and the syntropic farming has been heavily dismissed by permaculture people because they think that's just another way of doing chop and drop, which is not. The chop and drop in syntropic is just one practice that's part of a larger thinking and a larger system of practices as well.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this one here. I might be able to pull up some of the pictures of Sérgio doing the pruning in high trees. Yeah.
This is what's called here banana nica, and I think it's the most popular banana in Brazil that's used for an ex-colleague of mine down in the south, Banana Brazil, and these guys, they use these bananas to make their banana chocolate and dry bananas and stuff like that. Really tasty, and it's just wonderful to see all of this now life coming to our plantation. And there's a number of these out now as well, a number of others that are producing already. This next one is papaya, or mamong as it's called here. And this plant isn't even 9 months old. Look at the fruit it's pushing out.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Fantastic. Last but not least is my daughter connecting with nature and the Jaboticaba tree we have here, or one of the Jaboticabas we have here. And that gets back to the earlier discussion we were having about bringing our kids into contact with nature. And just for me, it blows me away. She's happy out, happy out, you know, and so am I.
That's right, Paul. I just wanna link a few people here and comment a few things as well. I've done an interview in Portuguese with Talita and Gabriel. They run a school with a different teaching method. They call it Pedagogia Viva, which is a live pedagogy or something. A literal translation would be. And their school is actually located in their property, which is a rural property, and some of their forestry systems are used as part of their classes. So they have a different way of teaching, and it's the kids' curiosity it's what drives the teaching. So Absolutely. It's centered in the kids. But one thing that it's amazing, and I've been talking a little bit with them, and it's an amazing couple. There's another interview to come up with Gabriel just about his forestry work. But the connection that they provide with the kids, you know, and the trust that they have, that the kids' inner wisdom somehow just know what they need and when they need it. So I think they're a very good option for those willing to invest in the intergenerational farming. One of the main problems we have today with agriculture, and most people are not aware of this or oblivious of this, as we are oblivious of so many of our natural problems today, is that in the next few years, the biggest amount of land will change hands in most countries. And the reason for that is because the farmers, the rural, the primary producers of pretty much every country, but especially in the developed countries, they're getting very old, and we grew up in a culture that looks down to farming as it's something that's not honorable. It's something that's not challenging enough, and something that it's for dumb people to be doing. And none of these are true. Farming is actually a very complex matter. And but anyway, as a result of that, what's happening is we have corporations buying land grabbing, as the researcher, what's his name? Miguel Altieri. I think he's Chilean, but he lives in California. So there's a process of land grabbing in which corporations are grabbing land in many countries. So land is being changed, is changing hands as we speak, and we're going to have our primary means of production to feed ourselves in the hands of corporations. And I'm not going to go into ideological discussions, but I don't want to have my means of survival in the hands of corporations. I don't trust them.
I'm pretty much sure that most people watching this will remember Star Trek and Captain Kirk and all the other different captains they had over the years and the different versions of it. But it brings to mind the Borg, and these people operate like the Borg, where it's like this collective of food processing and consumption. And it's basically just it doesn't have a good end for the planet, you know? It really doesn't.
That's right.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not driven by what's good for us and what's good for the planet. It's driven by what's going to make our profits more profitable in the next quarter, and they don't give a damn about anything else. And that's patently obvious. And it gets back to an earlier point we were having before we came online about how technologies and ideas are used when you put a perspective on it. It can be used for something that's wholesome and good, or it can be used for something that's basically out there just to manipulate people. And so that's what we're really looking to kind of move away from, that model of business. And one of the things that I find, and I also mentioned this, that no matter where you go, it doesn't matter what the idea is, there are always those people and groups that will move in, like they have in the green movement, using nice photographs of farms and food and etc. But there's nothing green about what they're doing, and there's nothing wholesome about what they're doing, and you know, and it's not just a case of I'm trying to move away from this. We need to get lots of people moving away from this to make a difference. You know, a real difference. Yeah.
But in a high note though, in dealing with this issue, which is preparing the next generation, we have in permaculture, one of the principles is that we focus our attention in the world that we want to create, not in fighting the world that we don't want. So in a way, being wise about all of these things, we need to focus our attention on our surroundings, because if we are happy about it, if our children are happy about it, other people will just see the quality of life, the health standards that we live in, and it just becomes more seductive, more attractive for other people to come. There's no point in trying to convert other people or trying to just spending a lot of energy protesting against things that we don't want if you're not doing the things that we do want.
Agreed. Absolutely.
And but in a way, I think it's a nice wrap up for us, which is, please do bring your children. We have our course starting in this 11th of September. We will deal with holistic decision making, which brings, in a nutshell, I would like to, it's how I view it, but it's much more than that. But in a nutshell, it's bringing wisdom to the decision making. It's not just decision making with knowledge, technical knowledge, but bringing a wisdom to it as well. We'll link the permaculture design into the implementation of forestry systems. And the forestry system that we're talking about is a specific one, is syntropic farming. And for that one, we have Sérgio Olaya, which is a very knowledgeable professional in doing that. He's been doing that for over a decade now, and with huge success in different climates and different areas. So we're going to link these areas together at the Green Man Farm. And this course is being organized and produced by this gentleman that speaks to us, Paul. Thank you very much. And
just on an administrative note, I'd like to appeal to all of you out there that early adopters will get a nice discount, because what we're looking to do is hopefully bank some of Eurico's flight over here with those early adopters, and it'll work out worthwhile for everybody that way. And it's kind of like a win-win way of doing things, you know. So we'll appeal to those that are interested to get in contact with. You have obviously now Eurico's contact or mine, and delighted to hear from you.
Thank you very much. But what I'll do is this: I can't do it right now. I'm actually on the clock here to go and pick up some trees that need to be planted soon. But later on, I'll link this video. I'll put some links for the event so that people can actually see all the description of the things that we're going to be doing in the course, and also they can see the prices and how to get in contact with you and Danielle. But it's a very nice approach, which is the early supporters will get a 50% discount in the course fee, and this way we make possible to organize the course as soon as possible for everyone. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm very honored and happy to be part of the team. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for everybody who's watching this, and do share it.
That's right. Do share it. I'll download this one, Paul, from Facebook, and I'll send it to you. We put it on YouTube as well for people who do not use Facebook. Good on them for doing that.
For all the nerds out there, share star.
That's right. Paul, thank you so much.
All right, mate. Take care. Ciao,
Appreciate
everybody.
it.
Bye.
See ya.